To avoid his dad, he actually snuck into a forbidden spot even villagers dared not enter. And the weird things he ran into? Each one scarier than the last. And the Master Guang he met in the end turned out to be his worst nightmare. Hey everyone, it's Lan here. Welcome back to Lanlanwong's Land of Scary. Today's story is about Alan, and it's tied to a place in northeastern Thailand that locals call the Forest of Trapped Ghosts. This happened over 40 years ago. Back then, Alan was a total little troublemaker, the kind that make your head spin. He was the 7th kid out of 10 in his family, and his dad was a famous local shaman. This shaman wasn't just someone who dealt with invisible evil spirits. He also cured villagers of all sorts of weird illnesses. His reputation spread so far, people from nearby counties would bring gifts just to ask for his help. Why mention Alan being the 7th? 'Cause this kid was a handful from day one, the exact opposite of his dad's calm, serious vibe. His dad was respected everywhere he went. But Alan, he'd stir up trouble no matter where he showed up. Let me tell you 2 stories to show just how wild he was. First off, he'd pretend to be a ghost to scare people. Back then, rural northeastern Thailand had no nightlife. Folks usually went to bed early. But Alan? He couldn't sit still. He'd sneak out at midnight to the alleys near his house, pick up rocks, and throw M at people's roofs. Then he'd pinch his nose and howl like a ghost. Back in those days, northeastern folks were super superstitious about ghosts. Every family was terrified of them. If any house dared say, "We don't believe in ghosts," Alan would pelt their roof with even more rocks. Until he heard someone scream in fear. Only then would he stop. How'd it end? He got caught, of course, and by his dad, no less. His dad must have used some shaman's 6th sense to figure it out. He stood in front of the whole village and said, "The one throwing rocks and pretending to be a ghost? That's my son, Alan. I'll discipline him properly from now on. And I'm sorry to everyone here." No favoritism at all. Alan wanted to dig a hole and crawl into it right then. The second story's even worse. He stole a Buddha amulet mold from a temple to sell fakes. Once, the village temple held an anniversary event and made a limited batch of Buddha amulets to raise money. There were so few, villagers were fighting over M, but one night, Alan snuck into the temple and stole the wooden mold used to press the amulets. He went home, mixed flour and dirt as holy material, pressed his own amulets, and sold M cheaper than the temples. Believe it or not, people bought M. He actually made a bunch of pocket money off this nonsense. In the end, his dad had to step in. He dragged Alan to the temple to apologize, then yelled at him in front of the monks. "If you ever dare disrespect the gods like this again, I'll break your legs." After that, everyone in the village knew Alan was a troublemaker. Back then, he was nothing like he is now, rebellious, annoying, a total little rascal. Alan's dad wasn't just a shaman. He also raised a few cows, about 5 or 6. Usually, Alan's grandpa herded M. If grandpa was busy, his oldest brother did it. But once his brother had an emergency, and no one else was free. So his dad turned to Alan and said, "Take the cows to the field to graze." Alan's face dropped. He was so unwilling. Why? Pure laziness. He didn't want to move an inch. But he didn't dare argue with his dad, so he trundled off slowly. Among those cows was a little black calf, his dad's pride and joy. It was gonna be a stud bull later, so his dad cared more about this calf than the others. He He'd check on it twice a day without fail. Alan got to the field that morning and started staking the cows. Driving wooden stakes into the ground to tie the cows to so they'd graze in one spot. The field was pretty far from the village. By the last stake, Alan's hands hurt and he was sleepy. So he just found a patch of loose dirt, slammed the stake down haphazardly, and called it good. Come on, loose dirt can't hold a stake. One tug from a cow, and it'd pull right out, but Alan didn't care. Once he was done, he ran to a mango tree nearby. There was a hammock strung up for villagers to rest in. He flopped into it, and within minutes, he was snoring like a log. He slept way too long, from morning till 1 p.m. Normally, you'd wake up at noon to give the cows water, but Alan forgot completely. When he finally rubbed his eyes and looked at the field, he froze. Only 5 cows were left. The missing one was his dad's precious black calf. Alan jolted awake. His dad was already strict. If he found out the calf was gone, Alan knew he'd get a beating for sure. He rushed to look around. There was a pond nearby, dug by villagers. Alan thought maybe the calf got thirsty and went to drink. But when he ran to the pond, he froze. The little black calf was floating on its back in the water. It was drowned. What do you think Alan's first thought was? He was only 14 or 15. No adult sense, no responsibility. All he could think was scared. Scared his dad would hit him, yell at him. And then he thought, run. If I run, I won't get punished. He left the 5 cows in the field, didn't even look at the calf's body, and just took off. You might think that's crazy, but kids that age fixate on one thing: avoiding trouble. He didn't care about anything else. Alan's plan? Go to the next county. He knew a few uncles lived there, so he wanted to hide with them. In his little brain, he thought, I can just walk there. Easy. He had no clue what dangers were ahead. When his dad took him to the next county for shaman work before, they'd taken a tractor. So Alan thought the road was safe. He was just wearing a plain shirt and pants, holding a stick, and had no money. That's how he set off. What he didn't know: the direction he was heading was right towards the border and a forbidden zone. Locals said if you wandered in, you might never come out. That's the forest of trapped ghosts everyone talked about. That land was cracked dry, missing minerals, so pale it looked dead. It was always droughty, wind blew, and sand would fly everywhere. It felt eerie just looking at it. Locals said stepping on that pale dirt meant you'd entered the forest of trapped ghosts, and the things inside, they'd scare you to death, not to mention the tigers, elephants, and bears. That stick Alan had? If he ran into a bear, his bones would snap like that stick. Easy. Alan walked on, stick in hand. At first, he was on red dirt roads, with cassava and rice fields all around. He could see people bending over, digging up cassava or planting rice. But he was scared of being recognized, so he snuck around, hiding from everyone. Gradually, the red dirt disappeared. Weeds got taller and taller, until all he could see was waist-high grass. Alan frowned, confused. Wait, when I came with Dad on the tractor, there was a dirt road straight to the next county. Where's the road? All I see is grass. It was around 2 or 3 p.m. when something rare happened in Northeastern Thailand back then. It started raining. And not just rain, a downpour. So heavy, if someone stood next to you and whispered, you couldn't hear them. Alan had no choice but to keep going, and soon he walked into a forest. That forest was full of banyan trees and rosewood trees, so dense their roots twisted like spider webs. He walked through a few vegetable patches and fields, then the plants got even taller. Vines coiled around trees like snakes. The tops of the dipterocarp trees were so thick, they blocked out the sun. In some spots, banyan roots tangled together like the forest's own veins. It looked weird. The rocks on the ground weren't normal either. They were basalt, left over from old volcanic eruptions, black and grimy. Alan was too busy hiding from the rain to be scared. His only goal? Find a big banyan tree to shelter under. Kind of funny, the first thing he worried about wasn't getting wet, but whether the cigarettes in his pocket were dry. Those cigarettes were his most prized possession back then. He finally found a big banyan tree, squatted down, and tried to light some banana leaves with a match. Northeastern Thailand gets freezing when it rains. Alan was shivering so bad he huddled up and smoked to stay warm. That's when he caught something out of the corner of his eye, a military green jacket with a foreign flag on it. It was a long-sleeved jacket with the cuffs rolled up. Alan was 14, small for his age, freezing and soaked. He grabbed that jacket, pulled it on, and unrolled the cuffs to wrap himself up tight. He smoked, thinking, I've walked so far and still haven't arrived. Maybe I should go back? But just thinking about his dad's temper made him freeze. He was stuck in that back and forth when he heard someone behind him say, "Kid." Alan spun around. There stood a man about 40 or 50 with a bushy beard and a beer belly, no shirt on. The man leaned in, stared at him for a second, then said, "Aren't you the shaman's son? What are you doing here?" Alan panicked, lied quickly. "Hi, uncle. I'm Alan. I'm just here to play." He didn't dare say he'd run away from home. The man laughed, didn't call his bluff. Why would a shaman's son come here? "Kid, have you eaten? Hiding from the rain?" He pointed to a bigger tree nearby. "Come on, hide over there with me. That tree blocks more rain." He walked over first and lay down. The rain was still pouring. You could hear it pounding on the leaves. The man said, "Kid, wait here. I'll go get you some water and food." Then he stood up and walked into the forest. That forest was so dense with banyan roots and vines. No light could get through. It looked terrifying. A little while later, the man came back. He handed Alan a bamboo water bottle and a package wrapped in banana leaves. Alan opened it, rice with grilled fish. He was starving, so he wolfed it down. He felt so grateful to that man, but then Alan noticed something off. The man was holding his stomach the whole time, his face twisted in pain. He kept groaning. "Ooh, it hurts so bad." After a minute, the man looked at Alan, his voice turning serious. "Kid, listen. Walk about a kilometer out of this forest, and you'll leave the banyan trees. You'll see pale dirt. Don't go left, you'll get stuck. You have to go through the forest of trapped ghosts to get out."
He sighed. A shaman's son shouldn't be here."
Alan finished eating and drinking, and then it was like someone snapped their fingers. The rain stopped instantly. Even the water droplets on the branches stopped dripping. The air went dead quiet, too quiet, scary quiet. The mysterious man stood up. "Kid, let's go. Hurry, don't look back." He walked ahead first, shaking his head. "Go on, don't look back." Alan hurried to follow. But after walking about 50 steps, curiosity got the better of him. He couldn't help but glance back. Oh my God. That glance almost scared his soul out of his body. Where the man had been standing, there was no one there. Only a dry, crumbling skeleton with a rusty wooden stake stuck in its stomach. Weeds were growing out of the bone cracks. Alan was so scared he couldn't even scream. He turned and ran, tripping over and over. His knees and elbows were scraped raw, blood mixed with mud. The bamboo water bottle fell and broke, water spilling everywhere. He scrambled out of that area, finally stopping to catch his breath. That's when he noticed the dirt under his feet had changed from red to pale white.
He suddenly got it. This is the forest of trapped ghosts the villagers talked about.
He had no option but to keep going. Soon he saw something ahead. 2 snakes mating tangled together right in his path. Alan had heard the rumors about the forest. Tons of snakes. These were local snakes, not super venomous, but if they bit you a few times, you'd go numb all over. He held his breath, tiptoed, and jumped over them. Then he looked at the vines nearby. Snakes were hanging from them. He looked down. More snakes, tangled and fighting. Everywhere he looked, snakes. He got goosebumps all over. He walked on, then felt it. Footsteps following him. Human footsteps. Plop, plop. Not 4-legged. 2 legs. His hair stood on end. He found a steady spot, spun around on instinct. There stood a man, camouflage pants, a tattered tank top, holding a huge sword. But the scariest part, half his face was split open, like an axe had hacked it. The wound was black, looking like it was falling apart. The man pointed at Alan, yelling in a neighboring country's language, "Give me back my stuff." Alan understood. He lived near the border, so he knew some of the dialect. There was no way Alan was gonna talk to him. He turned and ran about 500 meters, then suddenly saw a wooden fence. He was so happy! He thought a fence meant a village people. He crawled under it. But when he got through, it wasn't a village. It was an old temple. Alan thought, why is there a temple deep in this forest? The temple was all wood, no cement at all. The thatch on the roof was yellowed, like it had been there for decades. He walked around outside, then called out, "Hello? Is anyone here?" He yelled a few times. No answer. Alan thought, well, no one's here. I'll go in and pray to the main Buddha for comfort. He was still a kid, after all. When scared, he looked for something to believe in. He reached out to push the temple door open. Someone behind him said, "Child, don't touch that door." He spun around. There was a monk, about 40 or 50, with skin so white, not like someone who lived in the forest. More like a rich person who stayed indoors all day. The monk stood next to a few thatched huts to 4 or 5 of them. He waved Alan over. Alan walked over, and for some reason he felt calm, like a weight lifted. Later, Alan told me that monk was weird. His skin was soft and white like a woman's, smooth and shiny. He wasn't thin at all, nothing like a monk who lived in the forest and ate simple food. But Alan had seen so many scary things already. He didn't overthink it, just was glad to see someone normal. The monk asked, "Child, where are you from?" When Alan got closer, the monk looked at him clearly, then suddenly said, "Aren't you the shaman's son? Why are you here?" Alan still didn't dare tell the truth. "Master, my name's Alan. I was just playing here. Got lost." The monk seemed to see through him, but didn't call him out. He just said, "It's getting dark. Look at the sky. It's almost 6 p.m. You'll have to stay here tonight. Come, I'll take you to one of the huts to rest. Tomorrow I'll give you something, and you can keep going. Lucky you made it here." The monk took Alan to a hut. Alan went in. There was a neatly made bed inside. The monk said, "Sleep here. I'll be back in a bit." Then he introduced himself. "They call me Master CI." Alan was covered in mud, his clothes wet, so he tidied the bed a little. Soon, Master CI came back with 2 bananas. He handed them to Alan. "You must be hungry. Eat these to fill your stomach." Then he sighed. Sigh. A shaman's son really shouldn't be here. He added a warning. "From now on, don't go near the temple area. Remember that." Then he left. That night, Alan wandered around the hut. He saw a yellow scripture book on the table. Didn't know if he could read it, but he picked it up and read aloud anyway.
He had no idea what he was saying, just wanted comfort.
By evening, he was hungry, so he ate the bananas. He lay down for a while, then needed to pee. At first, he thought he'd go through the hut's cracks, but then he needed to poop. He couldn't hold it. So he went out of the hut, grabbing an oil lamp. Outside, it was as dark as a locked room. The only light was from the oil lamp, making the fallen leaves flicker in the glow. He found an open spot, squatted down, and finished. When he stood up to go back, a cold wind blew, carrying a sharp, whistling sound. It was so loud he had to cover his ears. He was about to head back to the hut, but curiosity hit again. The more the monk told him not to go to the temple, the more he wanted to see what was inside. Alan thought, "Why can't I go in? What's so secret in there?" He held the oil lamp, snuck to the temple door. It was an old wooden door with a bolt, covered in moss. He pushed it open slowly, peeked inside. Oh my God! The whole place was full of snakes. Alan said he could only call it a snake forest. At least 200 snakes, big, small, green, black, all coiled together. A dark mass. Some were shedding their skin. The air smelled like snake musk. There were tons of snake eggs, too. Some shells broken, baby snakes already hatched. A few big snakes, as thick as arms, were tangled and fighting inside the hall, hissing loudly. Alan was shaking so bad, he quietly shut the door and ran back to the hut, almost dropping the oil lamp. He knew Master CI was in another hut, but he didn't dare disturb him. He climbed into bed, pulled the blanket over his head, and tried to fall asleep to save energy. But as soon as he lay down, he heard it, footsteps walking around the hut. Crunch, crunch, stepping on dry leaves, clear as day. Slow steps, like someone was watching what was inside. Alan didn't sleep all night, half asleep, half awake. Every time he heard the footsteps, he held his breath, scared to move. The next morning, he walked out of the hut and froze. The ground around the hut was covered in footprints, a full circle around the hut. Even tiny footprints, smaller than a palm, like a toddler just learning to walk, had stepped there. His hair stood on end. Just then, he saw Master CI sweeping in front of the temple. He grabbed a broom and ran over to help, anything to take his mind off the footprints. Master CI said, "I went almsgiving already. There are 2 more bunches of bananas over there. Eat some, get your strength back." Alan helped sweep, then ate the bananas. They were as sweet as last night's. Like they'd never go bad no matter how long you kept them. After eating, Master CI walked over and set a few things down for Alan. "You should leave now. A shaman's son shouldn't be here." It's about 8 a.m. Go from here and you'll hit the main road soon. What he left: a monk's cloth bag, a bamboo water bottle, sticky rice wrapped in lotus leaves, and finally, a small wooden box. Alan opened it. Inside was something like chalky soil mixed with water. Master Ci said, "This chalky stuff is medicine to save your life. If you run into something unnatural, something wrong, put it around your eyes. It'll break the illusion tricking you. Remember, only use it if you have no other choice." Alan stuffed everything into the monk's bag, then knelt down to bow and say goodbye. Master Ci just stood there sweeping, smiled, and nodded, didn't say anything else. Alan walked out of the temple. After a few steps, he saw another monk putting on his robes. He moved slowly, like he was adjusting something. Once he had his robes on, he slung his monk's bag over his shoulder, held an alms bowl, and walked over to Alan. "Traveler, where are you going?" Alan hurried to say. "Master, hello. I want to go to the next county to find my dad. I got lost in the forest." The monk smiled. "Perfect. I'm heading to the next county too. Want to come with me? We can keep each other company." Alan was so happy. This was a lifesaver. He put his hands together, held them over his head. "Please, Master, lead the way." He trusted this monk completely. He thought, walking with a monk? Nothing bad can happen. This wasn't Master Ci. He introduced himself as Master Guang, from the neighboring country who'd lived in the forest for years. Along the way, Master Guang talked a lot, asked where Alan was from, told him all sorts of hunting tips. He knew the forest like the back of his hand. Master Guang told him about the forest animals, the land, and 10 forest rules, like don't answer strangers, don't look back, don't swear in the forest. They were similar to the forest taboos Alan had heard before. The more Alan listened, the calmer he felt. He thought he'd finally make it out alive. The strangest part? The next county should have been a long walk, but with Master Guang leading, it felt like the distance shrank. Soon, Master Guang said, "We're about 2 kilometers from the next county. Let's rest here for a bit, have some water." They sat under a huge sandalwood tree to rest. Alan drank the water. It tasted different. After drinking, he felt energized, like all his tiredness was gone. They rested a little. Then Master Guang suddenly stood up, turned to the air, and spoke softly. "Okay, child. He's suffered enough. Let him pass. Don't trouble him anymore." Alan frowned, confused. Who's he talking to? "There's no one here." Curiosity got him again. He reached into his monk's bag, pulled out the wooden box with the chalky soil, and did what Master Ci said, wiped it around his eyes. That wipe, it almost made him scream. Right in front of Master Guang stood that man with the split face, the one with the sword. The sword still had something dark red on it, like blood. Master Guang said to the split-faced man, "Let this kid go. He suffered enough. Look how cold he is." But the split-faced man pointed his sword at Alan, yelling, "Give me back my stuff." They argued. The split-faced man's voice got louder. His eyes looked like they were smoking. Master Guang stepped back 2 steps, put his hands together, and started chanting. Alan was so scared he ran over, grabbed Master Guang's robe, and hid behind him. "Master, save me." Just as Master Guang was about to say something, the split-faced man jumped up and swung his sword at Master Guang's head. What happened next? Did Alan survive? Tune in next time for the rest of this heart-stopping story. Don't miss the update. This episode's longer than usual, so I split it into 2 parts. If you want to know what happens to Alan next, and if he makes it home safely, stay tuned for part 2. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, and I will see you guys very, very soon.